Chapter 313, Help Me Eradicate the Winter Moon Sect, Jark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. In the eyes of the martial artists from the North region, the 9 nations of the desolate North were the most backward corner of the whole realm. There, one could scarcely find true elites of the flower blossom tier. Only by leaning on the might of kings and nations did they barely, forcibly possess such formidable existences. Beneath the flower blossom tier, all were deemed powerless mortals. In such a far-flung, barren place, its folk were naturally nothing but country bumpkins and crude bores to them. Yet now, a 17-year-old Grandmaster Alchemist had actually appeared here. Moreover, this person had even been capable of slaying Bao Shinran. Though Bao Shinran could not be counted as truly strong among the younger generation of the North region, he should not have been someone a desolate North bumpkin could kill either. Moreover, that bumpkin was only 17 and had even reached Earth grade in alchemy. Could such a heaven-defying genius truly exist in this world? Ha ha ha! So this is Grandmaster Ling. Tomorrow I shall go see him and request guidance from Grandmaster Ling. Someone immediately spoke up. I too shall shamelessly pay a visit to Grandmaster Ling. So shall I. The young people of the North region cried out one after another, without even asking Ling Han's consent. They simply proclaimed their intentions among themselves. Since even the final precious auction item had found its owner, everyone naturally departed the venue. In any case, the world held countless valuable and rare treasures, and this had only been an ordinary auction. No one would sink into despair just because they had failed to seize an item they had set their sights on. After Ling Han secured the blue-scale demonic fruit and the 9-hoop heaven hero blade, he settled the bill with the origin crystals he had gathered. As for the debt he owed Long Yongchang and the others, he would repay it slowly. Anyway, he still possessed a large stock of 100-year ginsengs and Ganoderma. He could simply sell these off to Gu Fenghua and the others. They lacked no money. At first, he had been somewhat displeased by how they talked among themselves, and so arbitrarily decided they would pay him a visit on the morrow. However, now that these people had become his clients, his attitude naturally shifted as well. So long as he could clear his debt first, he was glad to spar words and play along with them. According to Long Yongchang, his proof of identity as an Earth-grade alchemist would also arrive within these few days, and it was already nearly time for his departure. Ling Han tossed the 9-hoop heaven hero blade to Kanye, and after returning to the inn, he entered the Black Tower and began digging out ginsengs and Ganoderma. In truth, there were still many other spirit herbs, but for non-alchemists, ginseng and Ganoderma remained the best. Simply eating them whole was the finest nourishment. On the second day, Gu Fenghua and the others indeed came over. Grandmaster Ling, I truly never imagined you would actually be this young. Every person who came would say something along these lines, so often that Ling Han felt his ears were about to grow calluses from hearing the same words again and again. Ha, Ling Han! You are indeed a pervert, and you carry a bit of the bearing I once had years ago. Gu Fenghua's voice rang out. When he entered, he embraced Ling Han enthusiastically, yet then immediately leaned close to Ling Han's ear and whispered, However, Fairy Chi is mine, and if you dare snatch her, be careful. I'll pour itchy powder into your underpants and make you scratch your every day. He released him, his expression still as cordial and warm as spring. Ling Han shot him a look full of disdain and said, You pay more attention to your lover than your friends. This is called, Look out for yourself, or heaven and earth will join hands to destroy you. For my happiness, I can only sacrifice you, Gu Fenghua declared without the slightest reservation. Brother Ling? Chi Hualan arrived with graceful steps and raised her clasped hands toward Ling Han. I have not yet repaid you for saving me in the Devil's Sky mystery realm, and I did not think you have already become an Earth-grade alchemist. Hualan truly does not know whether there will come a day when I can still repay you. Of course there will. Gu Fenghua cut in. He and I are good friends. What is his is mine, and what is mine is still mine. So you can pledge yourself and marry me. That is the same as repaying the favor you owe Ling Han. Chi Hualan acted as though she had heard nothing. She smiled beautifully at Ling Han, then said, Brother Ling, would you be interested in being a guest at the Purple Star sect? She was a disciple of the Purple Star sect. If she could truly draw Ling Han into her sect, the value of such merit would be beyond measure, and the sect would spare no cost to help Ling Han ascend to the flower blossom tier. Coupled with spiritual medicines to extend his lifespan, it would be no difficulty for Ling Han to live another 400 years. That was a full 400 years. If he continued refining Earth-grade pills, how many more flower blossom tier elites would rise within the Purple Star sect? It could be said that a high-grade alchemist could completely rewrite the fate of a sect. Yo, isn't Little Sister Chi always famed for being incorruptible? Why are you now using a honey trap? Amid light laughter, a graceful girl drifted over, her movements flirtatious. She had a slender waist and a figure so shapely it stole the breath. Her protruding, full breasts could make any man's mouth water. How could someone possess such a fantastic figure? Her lips were red as flame, her hair spilling like a waterfall over her shoulders. This was an exceedingly beautiful woman. Moreover, she carried a fiery aura, like a fresh flower blooming in furious splendor, tempting others to step forward and try to pluck her, uncaring even if her thorns drew blood. Lin Shang-chin, Chi Hualan said softly. This fiery beauty was Lin Shang-chin. She lowered into a bow toward Ling Han, her head dipping slightly and revealing a small stretch of jade-like nape. Fair and delicate as silk, like polished jade, extraordinarily lovely, she was truly adept at wielding her own advantages. She had made no particularly explicit gesture, yet it was enough for one to fully taste her graceful allure, stirring an itch and an irresistible desire in the heart. Utmost Imperial Sect's Lin Shangqin hereby pays respects to Grandmaster Ling. She did not immediately rise, clearly waiting for Ling Han to step forward and help her up. She believed no man would be willing to miss such an opportunity, would he? Around them, Gu Fenghua, Xu Wentong, and the others all looked bewitched. In looks, it was hard to say who surpassed whom between her and Chi Hualan, but in bearing and charm, she far surpassed Chi Hualan. Of course, there were certainly many men who preferred the pure type like Chi Hualan. Though Lin Shangqin was only 20, her fiery charm already carried the style of a seductive elder sister. Chi Hualan was blunt. She gave an immediate snort and declared, "Vixen." Yet, Ling Han did not extend his hands to help her up. In his previous life, he had already seen countless attempts to ensnare him with beauty. Back then, he had stood at the peak of alchemy and martial arts alike, and the beauties willing to throw themselves into his arms possessed even higher status. There had been no lack of even fairies of the deity transformation tier. Lin Shangqin suffered the snub and could not help but be startled. However, Ling Han had already turned around and strode off, so she could only rise on her own. She rubbed her nose, and a defiant look surfaced on her face. Lu Yu Tong and Li Si Chan exchanged a smile. Their Ling Han was no shallow man. To win his attention, mere beauty would not do. Only sincerity could earn his trust. Grandmaster Ling, would you like to come and look around Utmost Imperial Sect with me? Lin Shangqin immediately caught up and asked in a delicate voice, unwilling to concede defeat. All right, so long as you agree to one condition of mine, Ling Han said calmly. Hearing this, everyone could not help but let a trace of disdain show. He had put on an act for so long, yet in the end he was still a lecher. But who could blame him? This perverted lecher was an earth-grade alchemist, and one with a boundless future at that. It was indeed possible he was worthy of such an extreme beauty like Lin Shangqin. Lin Shangqin sneered coldly within her heart, and her contempt for Ling Han rose. Yet the smile on her face did not change, and she asked sweetly, "May I know what condition Grandmaster Ling has? Help me eradicate the Winter Moon Sect." Chapter 314, Selling Ginseng and Discussing About Heroes. Translator Dark Angel. Editor Kurisu. Help me wipe out the Winter Moon Sect. The moment those words rang out, the hall turned as still as a frozen lake. Fear pressed down until no one dared breathe loudly. What kind of presence was the Winter Moon Sect? In the northern lands, sects were as numerous as reeds by a riverbank, yet only 5 were openly acknowledged as the strongest. Together hailed as the 5 sects of the North region, the Winter Moon Sect stood among those 5, lofty and untouchable. Though the Utmost Imperial Sect and the Heaven Origin Sect were both famed and formidable, when it came to true, absolute might, neither could be measured against the Winter Moon Sect. Perhaps Only if all three joined hands could they barely stand on equal footing with that icy colossus. And even then, to defeat a force that entrenched itself behind defense, bolstered by a mountain protection great array, one would need at least 3 times the Wintermoon sect's strength to force a true victory. In other words, it would take no fewer than 10 factions on the level of the utmost imperial sect working in concert to make such a feat possible. And in that process, even if triumph was seized, the cost would be grievous, blood and bones paying the bill. For the sake of an Earthgrade alchemist, what power would be willing to do such a thing? Ho ho ho, Grandmaster Ling truly knows how to jest. Dry laughter scattered through the air. In an instant, all their earlier swagger vanished. They sat and stood properly, docile as lambs. For no matter how unruly their spirits, they would never dare speak lightly of eradicating the Wintermoon sect. Whether those words were honest and born from the heart, or merely thrown out as a joke, Ling Han did not care. The grudge between him and Feng Yan was known throughout the Rain Country. A small inquiry would uncover it with ease. Thus, no matter how fierce his speech, everyone would simply assume it was all because of Feng Yan, never realizing that this hatred also tangled with the previous generation. If an ordinary person had dared utter such words, even if the Wintermoon sect did not personally lift a hand, countless other forces would rush to kill Ling Han to curry favor with the Wintermoon sect. Yet, this man before them was an Earth-grade alchemist, bearing a status akin to a flower blossom tier expert. How could any common faction dare move against him? Even a great power like the Wintermoon sect would have to weigh the alchemist society standing behind Ling Han. At most, they might beat him until he no longer dared speak so recklessly. But they would absolutely not dare kill him openly before the eyes of the world. Of course, what might be done in the shadows was another matter entirely. A single sentence was enough to press down these unbearably arrogant young geniuses. As Ling Han continued questioning them about the present situation in the North region, he had Zhu Wuju bring out yet another basket of ginseng and Ganoderma. These young people lacked neither backing nor silver. It could be seen from how casually they had tossed out almost 100,000 origin crystals at the auction. Indeed, even if these geniuses came from great sects and had long seen and eaten 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma, the moment they beheld such a thick bundle of nourishing tonics crammed into a basket as if they were mere bok choy, the corners of their mouths twitched violently. Aye, beside Grandmaster Ling, we truly are frogs squatting at the bottom of a well. So many 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma. Grandmaster Ling must have found an ancient herb garden. It can't be an ancient herb garden. Every medicinal herb here is only 100 years old. That's true. Most likely, some factions sowed a vast number of ginseng and Ganoderma 100 years ago, but for some unknown reason they were destroyed. Yet their herb garden was not ruined. Instead, the plants thrived, and in the end, Grandmaster Ling discovered them. Everyone felt rueful. This truly was fortune. And with an Earth-grade alchemist status as his shield, who would be willing to fall out with Ling Han over merely a bit of 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma? Ling Han could earn as much money as he wished without worrying about becoming a target. After all, to the great factions, this was certainly no more than a minor expense. Zhu Wuzhou handled the collection of money, while Ling Han spoke with them at ease, sounding them out and probing the present state of the North region. After all, the accounts recorded in books were at least from over 10 years ago, some even from decades past. The power structure of the North region had not changed. The strongest were still 5 forces, collectively known as One Valley and 4 sects: the Blood Flame Valley, the Winter Moon sect, the Shinra sect, the Beast Emperor sect, and the Half Moon sect. The Blood Flame Valley alone did not style itself a sect, yet it was acknowledged as the most powerful existence in the North region. Rumors said that within their ranks, a super elite of the deity transformation tier might arise. If that truly happened, they would dominate and sweep away all others in the North region. Though the world held 4 regions and 1 prefecture, it was no simple thing to travel freely between them. Each was separated from the others by a moat-like gulf, and it was rumored this scar had been left behind by a great battle in ancient times. The greater one's cultivation, the harder it became to cross that abyss. Precisely because of this, although the North region only had spiritual infant tier elites standing watch, they still did not fear invasion by elites from other regions. If we speak of the younger generation's geniuses, then we must mention Zuo Yuda of the Blood Flame Valley. He's only 23, yet he has already broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Shu Wentong said, envy written plain across his face. Within the Heaven Origin sect, he too counted among the strongest of the younger generation, yet he was only at the fourth layer of the spiritual ocean tier at present. He was still far from the peak of the spiritual ocean tier, to say nothing of stepping into the spiritual pedestal tier. That threshold was unbearably difficult. The higher one's cultivation, the harder it became to break through to the next tier. Once, there had been a genius who broke through to the flower blossom tier at 32 and became the youngest flower blossom tier elite in history. Yet from flower blossom tier to spiritual infant tier, he spent 122 years before finally breaking through. In the end, he died while still in the spiritual infant tier, never even managing to reach the deity transformation tier, an outcome that drew sighs from all who heard it. He's even more of a pervert than I am, Gu Fenghua muttered to himself at the side. Zuo Yu Da, Ling Han murmured, engraving the name into his mind. A 22-year-old spiritual pedestal tier elite was indeed shocking. As far as he knew, even the Sword Emperor and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had not been so fearsome in their beginnings. He guessed it must be because the world's environment had changed, making cultivation easier for people of this era. There's also a freak in the Beast Emperor sect called Lu Yang, 24 years old, and likewise in the spiritual pedestal tier. Moreover, the Beast Emperor sect has the custom of raising demonic beasts as pets. When man and beast combine their strength, battle prowess rises another step, Lin Xiangqin added, naming yet another genius. As for the Shinra sect, there isn't a particularly dazzling new star. However, they have a set of triplets. Though they're still at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, when the three join forces, they can kill an opponent in the early stage of the spiritual pedestal tier, so they must not be underestimated, Chi Hualan said. Among the young geniuses of the Half Moon sect, there is a girl rumored to be as beautiful as a flower. Even Zuo Yuda fell in love with her at first sight. He had his master make an offer of marriage, yet was coldly refused, Xu Wentong said with a laugh. I heard of that too. That girl is named Zhu Xuan. She's only 22, yet she has likewise broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Truly something admirable, Lin Xiangqin nodded. Her heart brimmed with endless envy. They were both women, yet why did the other surpass her by such a vast margin? Not only that, her beauty is shockingly breathtaking. I once saw her lift a corner of her veil to take a sip of water. Only a sliver of her chin was revealed, yet it was enough to make me bewitched, longing for nothing more than to die for her sake. Someone added, an obsessed expression plastered across his face. Those who had never seen Zhu Xuaner were stunned. To make a young genius infatuated to such an extent, this Zhu Xuaner truly possessed tremendous charm, didn't she? And she hadn't even shown her face. Merely a glimpse of her chin had been enough to captivate someone so utterly inconceivable. I heard it too. Rumor says a genius from the Middle State came here to train and happened to encounter Zhu Xuaner. On the spot, he took her for a celestial maiden and even went to the Half Moon sect to ask for her hand, saying he wanted to bring Zhu Xuaner back to the Middle State. Just guess, which Middle State faction did that young genius come from? Another spoke up, sounding a touch smug. Before anyone could guess, he directly revealed the answer to his own riddle. The Heaven Sword Sect.